Danny is crammed into a stadium with 90,000 screaming strangers watching the World Cup live. Wes is on his couch in his socks watching the same match on his TV. They both think they made the smart call, and they're both a little bit wrong because one of them forgot to count what the trip actually costs, and the other forgot that some things were never supposed to be an investment in the first place. And when you run the real numbers over the next 20 years, the gap between these two men will make your stomach drop. My name is Nick, and I've spent an embarrassing amount of my life running the actual math on decisions everyone else makes with their gut. If you've ever talked yourself into something expensive because it felt like a once-in-a-lifetime moment, do me a favor and hit subscribe, because by the end of this, you're going to see that phrase very, very differently. Alright, let's keep this fair. Danny and Wes are the same age, same city, same job, same $55,000 a year, and the same $9,000 in savings, and they're both huge fans of the game. The only difference is what they do this summer. The World Cup comes to town. Danny sees the trip of a lifetime, and Wes sees something else. This isn't about one guy being dumb and one being smart. It's about what nobody adds up until it's too late. Here's how day one feels, because day one is where the whole trap is baited. Danny buys his ticket the second the window opens. He screenshots the confirmation and drops it in the group chat within about 4 seconds. His phone lights up. His buddy who isn't going types, "No way, you're actually going?" And Danny has never felt more alive. He tells his barber, he tells a stranger on the train who did not ask. His dating profile now basically just says, "Going to the World Cup," as if that counts as a personality. For the next several months, Danny is the guy going to the World Cup, and that title, it turns out, is worth a lot to him emotionally. Wes opens a brokerage app. He taps his $9,000 into a total stock market index fund and closes it. Nobody texts him. There is no group chat for a man who just bought a broad market mutual fund. When a coworker asks what he's doing this summer, Wes says, "Probably watching the games at home," and the coworker nods and immediately stops listening. On day one, Danny has a ticket, a story, and the envy of everyone he knows. Wes has a confirmation email, and the quiet buzz of a man who did something responsible that no one will ever congratulate him for. It's not close, like in terms of how it feels, Danny is winning by a mile. But feelings and spreadsheets are very different animals, and this is where they start to pull apart. And before you decide this is a video about the handful of maniacs willing to fly across a continent for a soccer game, stay with me, because it isn't. Danny's version of this trap is just the loud one. There's a quieter version sitting on your own couch that catches far more people. And we'll get there. But first you have to watch the loud one work, because the quiet one runs on the exact same wiring. Because here's the thing about that ticket. The ticket was never the expensive part. That's the whole trick. When the prices first came out, Danny saw group stage seats starting around $60 and thought, this is doable, this is basically a nice dinner. What he didn't clock is that the 2026 World Cup runs on what FIFA politely calls dynamic pricing. The same technology that decides your flight costs more the moment you look at it twice. So the $60 seat is real technically the way a middle seat in the back row by the bathroom is technically a flight. The games Danny actually wanted, his team, the knockout rounds, climbed into the many hundreds, and then for the marquee matches into the thousands. And if he missed the official window, the resale market was standing right there, cheerfully charging multiples of face value because scarcity plus obsession is the most profitable equation in the world. So Danny, who budgeted for one $60 ticket, ends up buying a few tickets across the group stage and one gloriously overpriced knockout seat, because you don't fly all that way to see one game. That would be insane. Ticket spend alone quietly rolls past $2,000, and notice what just happened. The napkin said 60. Reality said something with a comma in it, and we haven't left his apartment yet. And notice why Danny didn't flinch at any of it. The second he decided this trip was once in a lifetime, a little switch flipped in his head, the one that's supposed to check prices. This isn't a personal weakness, it's the business model, the scarcity, the countdown clock, the you'll never get this chance again. All of it is engineered to convince you the normal rules about money are suspended just this once, just for this. Dynamic pricing isn't a glitch. It is the system, a machine, built to find the exact moment your judgment goes quiet and stand there charging you for it. Danny thinks he's making a decision. He's mostly responding to a very well-designed prompt. There's a way to want the thing and not get played by the prompt, by the way. We'll get to that. It's rarer than you'd think. Now come the cost, nobody puts on the highlight reel, and this is where $9,000 stops being a number and starts being a lifestyle. It starts with flights. The tournament is stretched across 3 countries and 16 host cities, some more than 2,000 miles apart. This is a World Cup you need connecting flights to attend properly. Danny's team plays in 2 cities, so that's 2 trips, at peak summer prices on routes every other fan is booking at the same time. Airlines can see that demand as clearly as you see a billboard. Call it well over $1,000 in the air before he has watched 1 single minute of soccer. The airlines, it should be said, love Danny very much this summer. Then he needs somewhere to sleep, and hotels are where the host city shows you who it really is. When a city knows the whole planet is coming for a month, room rates don't rise, they levitate. Fans booking for summer 2026 have watched normal hotels quietly triple their nightly rate for tournament dates because a hotel that charges you $400 for a $200 room hasn't done anything illegal, it's just read the assignment. A week and change across 2 cities and Danny's lodging is another $2,000 to $3,000, easy. And underneath all of that is the swarm of small stuff that isn't small. Trains, ride shares, a rental car for the leg where public transit gives up, food, which at a stadium is priced like the beer is a rare mineral, and the beer which costs more than the parking, and the parking which costs more than that original $60 ticket ever did. The jersey because you apparently cannot attend without the jersey, well over $100 for a polyester shirt with a very good story. None of it is crazy on its own, that's the point. Each one is reasonable enough to say yes to, and there are 40 of them. Add it all up, and Danny's trip of a lifetime lands somewhere right around $9,000, give or take a bad day on the resale market, which is a problem because $9,000 is roughly everything he had. The trip didn't fit his budget, the trip ate his budget and licked the plate. And here's the question nobody in the group chat is asking, how did he actually pay for it? Because most people funding a trip like this aren't paying cash from a comfortable surplus. The savings covers part of it, the rest goes on a credit card or gets sliced into 4 easy payments by one of those buy now, pay later buttons that has attached itself to everything, up to and including at this point probably his lunch. 4 easy payments, they call it, a phrase engineered to make a $2,000 decision feel like a light snack. And the thing about financing a party is that the party ends and the payments don't. A couple thousand on a card at north of 22% interest keeps charging him rent long after the confetti's swept up. The World Cup lasts a month. The invoice can last until roughly the next one, and Danny's not unusual. Plenty of people fly home from the big trip already in debt for it, still paying off the last vacation when they book the next. The tan fades in a week. The balance is stickier, and I haven't even mentioned the ambient spending, the stuff that gets you even if you never leave home. The betting apps especially, which during a big tournament light up like a casino floor, promising your soccer knowledge is a side income right up until the moment it very reliably isn't. By the cold arithmetic of the house always winning, the billions that get wagered mostly don't come back. And some slice of that is Danny, certain this next one's a lock. But here's where it quietly becomes your problem too. Even if you never buy a single plane ticket, the streaming bundle you added for the tournament and forgot to cancel until roughly the next one, the bar tab every time your team plays, which feels like nothing until you notice you've personally financed a small patio for a sports bar, the $20 bet that was going to be free money, basically a formality. You didn't spend $9,000, you spent $900 without once feeling it leave your hand, which is arguably the more dangerous version because at least Danny knew he was in a trap. Then the tournament ends, which is the part nobody makes a highlight reel about. Danny flies home. For a few weeks he's glowing. He shows everyone the photos. Everyone says so jealous, and it's wonderful. Then it's October. The glow has faded to a warm memory. The card statement arrives, and Danny discovers something strange. Just the trip is over, but he's still paying for it on a weekend that already happened for months. The experience was a moment. The bill is a subscription now. Let's go check on Wes, who has been doing absolutely nothing this entire time, which turns out to be the most interesting part of the story. Wes's $9,000 is sitting in that index fund being deeply, profoundly boring. It doesn't text him. It doesn't send him a jersey. There is no group chat. In year one, it drifts up a little, down a little, up a little more, and Wes barely looks because there's nothing to look at. This is the stretch of investing nobody makes a documentary about, where it feels like nothing is happening because, on the surface, nothing is. Wes is on his couch with a bowl of chips, watching the same match on a screen, up roughly $900 for the year, feeling like the guy who brought a calculator to a party. And look, it isn't as if Wes is immune. There's a night in year two where the highlights are playing, Danny's photos right there in the group chat, the crowd, the smoke, the grin, and Wes feels it land in his chest, like that hot little jab of, wait, am I the idiot here? His thumb drifts to the ticket site for the next big tournament, and he starts running the gymnastics everybody runs. Well, maybe just the group stage, maybe just one match. I've been so responsible, haven't I earned one? Everyone who has ever put money into an index fund knows this feeling. The pull to blow up the whole boring plan for something that feels alive. So Wes sits in it a while, then he closes the tab and does the hardest thing in personal finance, which is nothing at all. But make no mistake, he wanted to. Discipline isn't not feeling the pull. It's feeling it and closing the tab anyway. But compounding is boring for a few years, and then it stops being boring. And here is where waiting quietly starts to beat spending loudly. Give it 10 years, that untouched $9,000 growing at the stock market's long-run average of around 10% a year has roughly doubled, and then some, sitting in the low to mid-20,000s. Wes didn't add a dime. He didn't pick a single stock. He did nothing except not touch it, which, if you've tried it, is one of the hardest financial skills there is. And underneath the boredom, something had shifted. The growth on his growth was now doing more work each year than his original $9,000 ever did. The snowball had found the hill. Danny, meanwhile, has 10-year-old photos, a jersey gone see-through at the shoulders, and a story he's told so many times his friends have started finding reasons to leave the room. And that's just year 10. Let it run the full 20 years, and the number gets ridiculous, like that same $9,000 left completely alone grows to around $60,000, 60, from the money one guy spent on a month. That's the quiet violence of compounding. Danny converted his $9,000 into an experience that peaked the weekend it happened and has been deflating ever since. Wes converted the same $9,000 into a number that gets bigger every year he ignores it. But here's the part I've been saving, and it should make you sit up. Danny doesn't do this once. Nobody does this once. The World Cup comes back every 4 years, and every 4 years the trip calls to him again. So imagine Danny takes that trip 5 times over 20 years, and Wes invests that same $9,000 every 4 years instead. By the end, Wes isn't sitting on $60,000, he's sitting on north of $150,000. That's the difference over one working life between the guy who kept buying the experience and the guy who kept buying the asset. $150,000 is not a vacation. That's a paid-off car, a kid's tuition, a serious dent in a mortgage. It was hiding the whole time inside a decision that felt like nothing. So that's the case for Wes. It's airtight, it's smug, and if I stopped right here, I'd be doing exactly what every finance guy on the internet does, which is show you one side of the ledger and call it wisdom. So let me turn this around, because Danny is not the idiot in this story, and the honest math cuts both ways. Here's what Wes's spreadsheet can't see. There's a mountain of research showing people get more lasting happiness from experiences than from things, and the finding is stubbornly consistent. The money you spend doing something tends to make you happier longer than the money you spend owning something. Possessions fade into the background and you stop noticing them. Experiences do the opposite. They grow in your memory. You edit out the sunburn and the overpriced beer and the flight delay, and what's left is the goal in the 89th minute and the stranger who hugged you like family. And it starts paying before the trip even happens. People get real measurable joy just from anticipating an experience. The months of looking forward to it in a way they never get from anticipating a new gadget. Danny didn't buy a seat at a match. He bought a memory that pays a completely different kind of dividend for the rest of his life, and it started paying the day he booked it, and this particular tournament is not a normal one. 2026 is the first World Cup on North American soil since 1994, the first ever with 48 teams, and it may be the only time the biggest event on Earth shows up in Danny's backyard while he's young enough to chase it. Some things are not annual. If Danny brings his 7-year-old Leo, and Leo is standing in a stadium for the one home World Cup of his entire childhood, there is no index fund on Earth that pays that particular dividend. Wes will have more money at 60. Danny might have a better answer when Leo asks, years from now, "Dad, were you there?" Both of those things are real. Anyone who tells you only one of them counts is selling you something. So, no, the answer is not investing good, World Cup bad. The World Cup isn't a bad thing to spend money on, it's a misunderstood one. The real trap was never the tournament. The trap is spending $9,000 you had to finance on a trip you never fully priced out, because a countdown clock and a group chat and the phrase "once in a lifetime" did your thinking for you. The whole machine, the dynamic pricing, the tripled hotel rates, the buy now pay later button, the betting app is built around one reliable human bug. When we decide something is once in a lifetime, we stop asking what it costs, and it's not just fans. Host cities run the same play on a bigger scale, spending public money on stadiums the research keeps finding they don't come close to earning back. One study of these mega events pegged the average return to the host at around negative 38%, which is an economist's very polite way of saying the city lit a large pile of your money on fire and handed you a month-long party as the receipt. Everybody, from the fan on the credit card to the mayor with the bond issue, forgets to count everything. That's the whole game. And that's why nobody talks about this, because the guy who runs the numbers at the barbecue, who points out that the trip of a lifetime is also a car payment you'll be making until the next one, sounds like the guy who hates joy. Nobody wants to be that guy. So the math just sits there, unspoken, while the countdown clock ticks. Here's the thing, though. You don't have to pick between being Danny and being Wes. There's a version of Danny who wants that memory and decides it's worth it on purpose. He saves the cash for 2 years instead of financing it in an afternoon. He goes to one group stage match instead of chasing his team across a continent because he did the math and knew which line he couldn't cross. He brings his kid, buys the one jersey, skips the marquee final that would have cost more than the rest of the trip combined, and comes home with the whole memory and no invoice chasing him into next year. That guy gets almost everything Danny got and keeps most of what Wes kept. He exists. But that's a whole different video, and the fact that he's rare tells you almost everything. For now, here's the one thing I want you to take from Danny and Wes. The next time something gets sold to you as once in a lifetime at any price, this weekend only, clock's ticking, notice that the countdown clock is never there for your benefit. It's there to keep you from doing the single thing that kills the sale, which is pausing long enough to ask what else that money was quietly going to become. Because both of these men bought something the summer the World Cup came to town. Danny bought a weekend, and it's a genuinely great weekend, the kind Leo will ask him about one day. "Dad, were you there?" "Yeah, buddy, I was there." That's real, and no spreadsheet gets to take it from him. But Wes bought a decade, and when his kid asks a different question, the boring one, the one about whether they can actually afford the thing they need, he gets to say yes to that too. One of them will be paying off a month for years, the other turn the same month into something he never has to think about again. Neither of them is the fool. The only fool is the person who never checked the price before the clock hit zero. So, check it, then go have the weekend or keep the decade. Just make sure you're the one who chose.